Any health-related information on the following show provides general information only. Content presented on any show, by any host, or by any guest should not be substituted for a doctor's advice. Always consult your physician before you begin any new diet, exercise, or training program. And thank you for listening to the Whole Care Network.
Welcome to Healing Ties on the Whole Care Network. On Healing Ties, we're creating a life to love after caregiving ends by sharing stories and resources and being with awesome people like you. Now that caregiving has ended, let the Healing Ties begin. Here's your host, Chris McClellan, the Bowtie Guy.
Well, greetings everyone. It is Chris McClellan, the Bowtie Guy, on the Whole Care Network for another special episode of a 6-series podcast episode. Goodness, I've been so excited about preparing for this and doing this. I think it's our 5th series, 6-series podcast. And today we're starting our series called Song for the Caregiving Soul, featuring singer, songwriter, author, and fabulous keynote speaker, Barbara McAfee. Barbara, welcome to the show. Welcome to the Whole Care Network. It's just a thrill to have you a part of the network today. Thank you.
It's a joy to be with you, Chris. I can't wait.
Yeah. So we met a couple of months ago. We were doing a virtual caregiving conference with Age Without Borders, and we've just had some nice visits along the way. And today's the day we've decided to do this. So I appreciate this. But could you tell our listeners first, before we get into your wonderful songs, just a little bit about your background and the things that you're doing to support family caregivers?
Well, first and foremost, I am a family caregiver myself. I have been taking care of my mom. She's 94 now, and I've been increasingly stepping up to support her. She's about a half hour away. So that's not anywhere on my website or my resume, but that is a big part of where I stand in terms of supporting caregivers. Is I get it.
You get it, yes.
How stressful and boring and exhausting and sweet and overwhelming, etc. Fill in the blank. So lots of adjectives. So that's partly the credential that I stand on in terms of doing this. And I've always just had a heart for people who are doing work that I can't necessarily do. I do a lot of work with healthcare providers. I have a little hospice choir, a little comfort choir, and we do a lot of singing for people in hospice or who are dealing with chronic illness or depression or bereavement or something like that. So compassion is a big part of our work. We're a 10-year-old choir. And then I also do a lot of work in the corporate sector and helping people find their voice, whatever that means to them. I do trainings and coaching around voice and do some speaking and singing and those kinds of settings as well. So that's a good start. I do 16 different things, and it all makes sense to me.
and as a caregiver, we certainly get about doing 16 different things all at the same time. But
yes, that's for sure.
You also have a book, Full Voice: The Art and Practice of Vocal Presence. And as I was thinking about vocal presence, I often hear people talk about body language, but I think our vocal presence is just as important, if not more important, than our body language.
I agree. I often say that one of the challenges of my work is that the voice is hidden in plain sight. It affects us all the time, consciously and unconsciously, and yet most of us don't get any support or training in how to use it well, how to shift it in different situations. And in caregiving, particularly, you need them all. You need to be able to be firm, and then you need to be compassionate and warm, and then you need to be light. And if you use the wrong one, chances are good people aren't going to hear you well.
Oh, goodness. We connect on so many different issues there because, as we talked earlier, I'm real focused on the caregiving issue now, 4 years past my caregiving experience, looking at this through the lens of leadership and communication, and really the way that you're able to communicate and talk to somebody goes a long way in advocacy and getting your point across and just kind of feeling comfortable.
That's true. I have an advocate voice that I use on behalf of my mother. Fortunately, I don't have to use it all that often, but if she's not getting the kind of care or attention or support that I believe she needs, I know how to be forceful without being abusive, which is, very helpful. It doesn't hurt also that I'm 6'2". So, I'm a strapping presence.
There you go. I did not know that detail about you, so now
yeah.
Goodness. Well, over the next 6 weeks, Barbara's picked out some of her most favorite songs, and let's see. Today we're going to be talking about the house on Sherburne Street. Week 2, Living Dying Man. Week 3, Brain Rats. I can't wait to get to that one. Well, I can't wait to get to all of them, actually, but that one really stuck out. Week 4, Surrounding You. Week 5, Songs When I Die. And then we'll finish up week 6 with Living in the Light. Barbara, I just can't thank you enough for selecting these songs and sharing your voice with our listeners here on the Whole Care Network.
It's my pleasure.
The song you've selected is The House on Sherburne Street. So can you tell our listeners the significance of the house on?
Well, it's the house where I grew up my entire childhood. My mom lived there for many years after my father died. And the song that you're about to hear is the one that I wrote, and mostly in that house. The joy of it was that he got to stay home. He would have been a terrible patient in the hospital. And we had a very sweet time. Before he died, he kind of had what I call the hospice makeover. Some of his edges got smoothed out, and we had a really lovely couple of months. It changed the course of my life. I was only 31 when he died. And it changed the course of my life in some really powerful ways. And it took about 20 years for me to sort of synthesize all that into a song. And so it sort of tells the story of my very first caregiving journey, a rather significant one, losing my dad at that tender age. So that's what the song's about.
Well, I think that's a perfect segue into let's listen to the song.
Fell against the pillows, he dropped right in my hands. I gentled him with words whose source I still don't understand. He softened in his dying, a bitter man grown sweet. That rainy August midnight, the house on Sherburne Street. That giant of my childhood, sharp words and scathing tones, his pounding jaw and flashing eye made a harsh place of our home. A wounded man so angry, was it something about me? I'd creep around on tiptoe in the house on Sherburne Street. Summer in the garage, talking about lawnmowers, then right into life after death. Upstairs in the bedroom, changing his dressings, laughing till we lost our breath. Long easy evenings just watching him smoke, sweet nicknames and tenderness under the jokes. My frail yellow hero. To call the funeral man, I stroked his brow and slid the Timex from his cooling hand. I felt a burden lifting, felt an ancient fear retreat. Life and death came calling. to the house on Sherburne Street. It's been 20 years since I asked him to haunt me. It seems that he found a way. The redbird appears in the strangest of places. The old clock started ticking on Christmas Day. Upstairs in the hallway I sometimes smell smoke. I cherish the nicknames, retell the jokes of my late blooming hero. Draws me closer to that door. Remembering that it will end makes me love my living more. I'll ripen toward my dying with my heart and mind at ease. I'm still held in the mystery we found on Sherburne Street. I'm still held in the mystery we found on Sherburne Street.
Well, Barbara, the song just has, I'm sure, has so much meaning to you, and there's quite a bit that could be said about the song. And I wrote some different notes as I was listening, but one thing that stuck out, that wounded man so angry. What was he wounded about?
Oh, so who knows? Really, I think his father was not the warmest person. I think there was some wounds there. He was a World War II vet. Mm-hmm. He did not see combat, but he saw the effects of it because he was also tall, so they wouldn't send him into battle. Mm-hmm. But Mom recently told me that when he came home from the war, he was different. He went right out of high school and was gone 4 years. So I think, like many men in that generation, he was. A war is just an inhuman experience, and then you're not supposed to, and then we take away all the ways that people can process that experience, especially in that generation. So I think that was a kind of a deadly combination for him.
Oh goodness! And another note that I wrote down here. It's been 20 years since I asked him to haunt me.
Yeah, he does, honestly. I've heard this from many friends who have loved ones who have died, that the birds are the way they stay in touch. And for certain, I've had a lot of, and I don't care if it's true, Chris, it just makes me feel better, that the cardinals are hanging around all the time. And I always greet them as though it was him. So.
Well, goodness, we connect there because in my symbolism for my deceased partner Richard is the white flower, and
yes,
and I believe that there is a presence, and it's okay, and you smelled the smoke, or did you think that you smelled the smoke? But does it make any difference? It's what was there.
Right.
It's the presence.
Yep.
You mentioned also that it took you a number of years to write that song.
Yes.
What, as you look back in the process of doing the song, what's changed for you with the song, with the lyrics, with how you view life after death?
Well, I think what changed over this 20 years is, I think there's this, for one thing, the relationship does not end at death.
Right.
It just changes. And because I'm still learning about what happened there with my father and reinterpreting what shifted. One of my stories that I have is, when I was with him as he died, it was not traumatic. It was a strong experience, but it was not frightening at all. And I was very calm, and I was saying things I didn't know I knew to say.
Right.
And even as it was happening, I was like, how am I doing this? I'm 31 years old, and my dad is dying in my arms, and I'm fine. One of my stories about my father's dying is that he took a big bunch of fear with him into the other world. And I think one of the things that left was my fear of death. I still have fear about pain and debility and all the loss of dignity and things like that, but I really don't fear death anymore. And that set me free in a lot of ways in the last several decades of my life. So that took some time to process. And then also, I think there was an incentive to finish the song before Mom moved out of the house.
Yes.
I remember the last thing in the house was the piano that I grew up playing. And I sat down and played that song like the day before they moved the piano to my brother's house. So it felt sort of like, I think that's partly why I called it the house on Sherburne Street, because the piano was on the site of where my father took his last breath in that part of the living room. So,
it can touch really anybody who goes through these situations. And let's face it, when it comes to caregiving, there's two very common aspects. There's a beginning and an end. And in most cases, we're not prepared for either one of these life-changing events. But when we share stories like this, especially through a beautiful song like you've written, it can really help people when their loved one makes their transition.
Yes, I remember the day we got I went to the doctor with my parents, and we got the terminal diagnosis, and it was 3 months from the diagnosis until he died. And I remember riding down the elevator and literally getting a fever. I got sick in the elevator just from the shock of it. And I'm embarrassed to say that one of my first thoughts besides I'm going to lose my dad really young, was, am I going to show up the way I want to show up? Which was like, well, that was just all about me. It was, but I just realized that if I didn't do it the way I wanted to do it, that I could really live with a lot of regret for the rest of my life. And I don't live with a lot of regret. I live with a lot of gratitude, and that we had that time, and that I made the choices in my life that I did, so that I could actually be present during his illness. And we had a lot of hilarious moments, strangely warm and hilarious and unbelievable. And it's not just unrelieved suffering. I think that was the thing that surprised me the most, is that it was a mixed bag, just like everything. And
I don't mean this in a negative sense, but when it comes right down to it, it's a part of life. And
sure.
And when we can share our experiences, we kind of help people through their transition as well. And because one thing's for sure, we're all going to go through it.
That's for sure. Yep.
Goodness, these go by very quickly, but could you?
They do.
Yeah. Could you let our listeners know how they can contact you, how they can find your music and your book?
Sure. Well, probably the easiest way is on my website, BarbaraMcAfee.com, and I think all of that information is on the landing page on the website. And then my music is all available on iTunes and places like that, Spotify, iTunes. And my book is available in all these, online, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, in various formats.
You can find all of Barbara's contact information and links to her music on the Whole Care Network. Simply visit thewholecarenetwork.com/songs for the caregiver's soul. And Barbara, you are certainly someone who is creating healing ties all around us. I can't thank you enough for doing this 6-series podcast with us. And we want to thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to next week's podcast as we listen and chat about Barbara's song, Living Dying Man. We welcome your comments and feedback. Send us an email at wecare@thewholecarenetwork.com. As you know, I'm your host, Chris McClellan, the Bowtie Guy. I'm creating a life to love after caregiving ends through radio, writing, travel, advocacy, and being with awesome people like Barbara McAfee. Healing Ties and Songs for the Caregiver's Soul are part of the Whole Care Network. Visit us online at thewholecarenetwork.com, where you can meet all our show hosts, listen to all our shows, especially our podcast series featuring the music of Barbara McAfee. Let's enjoy this encore performance of The House on Sherburne Street. Make it a great week, everyone. Be well. Bye-bye.
He fell against the pillows, he dropped right in my hands. I gentled him with words whose source I still don't understand. He softened in his dying, a bitter man grown sweet. That rainy August midnight in the house on Sherburne Street. That giant of my childhood, sharp words and scathing tones, his pounding jaw and flashing eye made a harsh place of our home. A wounded man so angry, was it something about me? I'd creep around on tiptoe in the house on Sherburne Street. That summer in the garage, talking about lawnmowers, then right into life after death. Upstairs in the bedroom, changing his dressings, laughing till we lost our breath. Long easy evenings just watching him smoke, sweet nicknames and tenderness under the jokes. My frail yellow hero. Dad, Mom fled to the kitchen to call the funeral man. I stroked his brow and slid the Timex from his cooling hand. I felt a burden lifting, felt an ancient fear retreat. Life and death came calling to the house on Sherburne Street. It's been 20 years since I asked him to haunt me. It seems that he found a way. The redbird appears in the strangest of places. The old clock started ticking on Christmas Day. Upstairs in the hallway I sometimes smell smoke. I cherish the nicknames, retell the jokes of my late blooming hero. Draws me closer to that door. Remembering that it will end makes me love my living more. I'll ripen toward my dying with my heart and mind at ease. I'm still held in the mystery we found on Sherburne Street. I'm still held in the mystery we found on Sherburne. Street.